Hi friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge. I believe this is my first Smith & Wesson knife on Canadian Cutting Edge. I've had some of their knives before, but I don't think I've had them since I started this channel. This is the MP300, also known as 1085-896. Model number's right there. Aluminum handle. They say it's 8CR13 MOV with a black oxide coating. Thumb stud knife, a decent drop point shape. The blade shape is actually quite useful, a very utilitarian style knife. Certainly it has some pros, but it definitely has some cons. If you are on a very tight budget and you've got just some very basic modification skills of your own, this can be a decent knife. We've got a tip-down pocket clip, right side only, but functionally, this knife is fairly decent, especially at the price. So if you're interested in listening to this thing, stick around. We're going to be reviewing the MP300 right now. So there you go. You can see we've got a swedge on the spine of the blade, decent drop point, fairly decent belly on here, straight section at the bottom, sharpness choil, pretty good, not terrible. Thumb studs, placement for the thumb studs is very good. The flickability is high. The closing of the knife is something we'll talk about in just a minute. But yeah, right and left, the thumb studs are in a good spot. So you've got that. Left-handed, the knife is a little less comfortable because your fingers are going to wrap around that pocket clip right there. But in the right hand, it's actually fairly comfortable. And I've said this a number of times. Tip-down pocket clips are usually more comfortable, at least for me, than tip-up pocket clips in the right hand. It's just the nature of where they are placed. Back here, you know, they put pressure on the soft part of your palm back here, but when it's up there, you know, it's along this tougher section of your hand. We've got aluminum handle scales with a little bit of a texture on them. Decent choil right here for your index finger. And then I don't usually like these big wide spaces here that are too small, you know, to use for your finger, but they keep your, you know, finger further away from the edge. I very often like to be close to the edge, you know, when I'm doing delicate but harder, you know, cutting of things. So I like this to be smaller, but not bad, not bad at all. T8 and then T6 screws back here. You can see that these ones are still pristine and they're going to stay that way, because that's one of the huge cons of these that I've had before. To take these apart is a royal pain in that it's going to be very easy to strip those screws out. It just happens so very much. Even the pivot screw is easy to wreck. They just use a very, very cheap, soft metal. You can see that this is an all-black knife, except for the huge badging there in white. M&P by Smith & Wesson. And then on this side, you've got the model code. I'm wondering why they didn't just make the stop pin and the body pins black as well. Just black the whole thing out. I think that would have been smart. But, you know, at 10 bucks, although this is listed at their website with an MSRP of $25.99 US, if you're paying that much, you're paying a lot too much, because there's a lot of stores that have this at a very low price. Knife Center, $10.95. I bought this at Knife Center a few months ago, along with some other knives, and I just, you know, wanted to put one of these knives in one of my videos. Because this is a budget channel, I want to review some of the really low budget stuff so that people can see what they're like. Amazon has it for $13.46. So if you've got an Amazon Prime membership, you know, you can get it shipped for free, then Amazon.com is probably going to be cheaper overall than buying this at Knife Center. If you're in Canada, Blades Canada, also known as Warriors and Wonders, has it for $19.99 Canadian. So a $20 Canadian knife, yeah, it's a decent enough knife. How comfortable is it in hand? It's fairly comfortable. It is a bit slick back here for your thumb. So I would like some jimping up here, because my thumb just didn't seem to get a secure grip. My fingers along here, they did okay. This little bit of texture on the side helps a bit, with the grip. And fairly decent even, a reverse grip is okay. The reverse pull grip, you have to put your thumb either over or under because you've got that point right there, and that's just annoying as heck. But, it's a comfortable knife in hand. They say this is 8CR13 MOV. That is some stores. Smith & Wesson does not say what kind of steel the blade is at all. And I've not yet sharpened this myself, so I'll sharpen it. I'll leave some text on the screen telling you if I think it probably is 8CR13 or not. I've sharpened a lot of 8CR13, so I know what it feels like. This black oxide coating is very cheap. I did probably 5 minutes of cutting cardboard, and there's a fair bit of wear on the edge of the coating there already. I'll give you some close-up shots of that. The cutting wasn't that good either. Here's one example. You can see, hopefully you can see, how it went in waves. And it just waved out, and then it started catching here, and it really caught badly there. And then it caught so badly here that it just tore. That is at a fold, but a decently sharp knife isn't going to care if there's a fold in the cardboard. It's just going to go through. It's not super heavy cardboard. It's Amazon box, so yeah. They didn't do a very great job sharpening this knife. Wasn't terrible, but not a great job. I'll give you all the specs in a little while. There's no lanyard option on here. So if you really like lanyards, this knife is not for you. Pocket clip, you've got 1 inch of the knife sticking out of your pocket, a little over 2 centimeters. Let's demonstrate that. Since it's a fair bit standing off of the knife handle here, it's very easy to get it on there. And it does okay as a pocket clip in terms of retention. But you've got, a fair bit of knife sticking out. The pro on that is, with the screws and everything, you've got good texture. It's going to be very easy to, pull that knife out. Let's do our size comparison because I forgot to do that earlier. So this knife, like I said, is between the Ontario Rat 1 and 2 in size. And, it's smaller than that. So it's close to the size, a little bit bigger than the Ontario Rat 2, but not by much. It is over 3 inches in the blade, and maybe that means this is a good time to go over all the specs and that. 140 grams, that's 4.95 ounces. So it's not a light knife, but it's not obscenely heavy either. The factory sharpness, 265 bes, so not sharpened very well. Hopefully you know how to sharpen a knife. If you're a knife enthusiast, there you go. You should at least be in the process of getting good at sharpening knives. Nobody is perfect immediately, but that's one of the main things that will give you joy in the hobby when you learn how to sharpen well. The cutting edge length is 85.7 millimeters, which is 3.37 inches. Blade length, tipped to the closest spot on the handles right up there, that is 84 millimeters, which is 3.31 inches. The blade thickness up here at the ricasso, 3.1 millimeters, that's 0.122, so just a hair under 1/8 of an inch. Maybe not even a hair, just a bit under. The blade depth, it's biggest right back here, 27.2 millimeters, 1.07 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind, And I like to measure where I do most of the cutting, and as you can see from the wear, that's right about there. 0.56 millimeters, 22 thousandths of an inch, so it's not obscenely thick. You know, my target for a knife like this would be 20 thou, so 22 thou is not bad at all. The grind angle. Well, on this side, yeah, right about where my finger is, 24.2 degrees around here. And then around here, it was about 27.3, 27.4 in this area. On this side, it was quite different. It started off at the, well, just a quarter of an inch up from the heel, 18.1 degrees, and then 14.3 degrees, 11.5 degrees, and then 9.7 degrees. So between 9.7 and 27.3, that's quite a difference. If you just look at it with the naked eye at how wide this silver line is, you can't really see much difference. So if you're not experienced and you look at this, oh, it looks like it's sharpened evenly on either side, but it's far from sharpened evenly. The center of the edge is way over on this side of center. It's not going down the middle. So hopefully you can sharpen a knife. I would sharpen this to about 20 degrees per side, especially since I'm not 100% confident this is 8CR13. About the handle now. The handle length, 118 millimeters. That's 4.64 inches. The grip area, it's about 10 centimeters, just a bit under 4 inches, but more than 3 3/4. The handle thickness on the flat part here, not on the screws or anything, just side to side, 13.4 millimeters, 0.527 of an inch. So not bad. Half an inch is pretty decent. The handle depth is largest right up here. That is 30 millimeters, 1.18 inches. When the knife is closed, the widest point is right there at the end of the thumb riser. 32.8 millimeters, 1.29 inches. And the total length of the knife when it's deployed is 202 millimeters, 7.95 inches. So an 8-inch knife, 3 1/3 inch blade, you know, those proportions are okay. They're not great, but they're okay. It's a little bit handle heavy. Even on the balance point, it's a little bit handle heavy. Right there. I would prefer it to be up here, but that's not a big difference at all. So the balance is not bad. So the cons on this thing, most of the cons on this thing are not terrible. They're just, you know, minorly irritating. But let's go over the big pros and cons. The big pro, we've got a decent shape for the blade and a reasonable handle, you know, and at $11 US, that's not bad. The biggest con for this knife is not the pocket clip. It's the lock release. Because it's just got, you know, an edge there, a 90-degree edge, and it's got a fair bit of pressure. The detent is okay. It's a little bit strong, but it's okay. Fair bit of pressure. When you want to release the knife, because it also has a lock stick, and when you finally get it over, you end up, you know, putting a lot of pressure on your thumb right there. And that's irritating. I'm not going to say it's painful, but it's irritating. And it's more than mildly irritating. I dislike that a lot. But if you've got just minor skills, if you can take this knife apart, and if you have something like a Dremel, it's not that hard to chamfer that edge. Don't do it when the knife is assembled unless you are willing to, you know, chew up the knife here, because it's probably going to slip a little bit as you're doing it. But just knocking that corner off a bit is going to make that a whole lot more comfortable. So overall, what do I think of this knife? I think it's worth, you know, the $20 Canadian, the $12, $13 US that you're going to pay once you're including shipping and stuff. It's a good knife for like in a glove box. Is it a good user? For somebody who's really has a definitely very tight budget, you know, it can be a good user. It's got white nylon washers, but you can even see right there, that's an okay washer, especially at this price point. There's very little blade play side to side. There's just a very tiniest bit. And I've not adjusted the pivot screws at all. I've done nothing on any of the screws. And, it didn't change during my testing on how loose it is. And it's okay, and you can drop some oil in there. I think I did drop some oil in there without changing the pivot screws. Yes, I did. There's a little bit of wetness. Yeah, you can see it right there. A little bit of wet. And, put a little lubrication in there and then use it a bit, and it's going to do okay. It's not bad. I like thumb studs. It's a decent knife. Yeah, it's got cons, but it's got pros. If you really want a totally blacked out knife, take it apart and spray paint the stop pin and the body pins as well. It's okay. Do I recommend this knife to a certain person who has a very tight budget and you want, a spare knife somewhere? Or even as your main knife if you've got a really tight budget? You could do a whole lot worse for this price than this knife, but it's going to be hard to do much better at this price than this knife. Do I recommend the brand? Not really. There's other brands that I like a whole lot more, but this is okay. Yeah, definitely it's made in China. So that's this knife. Hopefully I was able to include an image of that. I'm going to take the still pictures of it first, and then I'm going to try to take it apart very carefully if I can to do that modification on that lock release right there. Well, I did take it apart. I was going to take the screw off on the show side here, but that screw there wants to strip out, and it's just tight. I did get the two screws off on this side, but then they've got a D-shaped pin that's held on in place with the pocket clip. I'd have to take the pocket clip off, but anyways, with that D-shaped pin right there, you can't turn that loose. So the two screws on this side and then the pivot screw on that side, and it came apart fairly well. And there's the white nylon washers. The smaller one goes on the liner lock side, and then the wider one helps stop blade play. So very simple. There's the stop pin, and these are very soft steel. I was just trying to hold this one in place using my pliers, and it got a little bit chewed up. Not very much, but just a little bit, as I was trying to get this one out afterwards, being able to hold it really still. But yeah, it's a very inexpensive knife, isn't it? So now I'm going to take this to my Dremel and see if I can chamfer that off. Of course, that's going to mean it's shiny, but maybe I'll put some paint on it. We'll see. I took out I've got a kit of Dremel tools, and here's a wheel. You can see I got a really budget set. They're not balanced. This side was grinding, and this side was not touching at all as it was turning. They're not perfectly balanced. But then a buffing wheel with a little bit of green polishing paste. And now that's nice and smooth, not sharp at all. And I'll put it together and let you know how it works. So this section was recorded after everything else. Now you can see some wear on these screws, just a little bit, there and there. If you're not familiar with this product, you owe it to yourself to get familiar with this or some other product like it. It's an anti-cam-out fluid. It's designed to go on the head of your screwdriver or into your screw, and it creates friction and grip so that it doesn't strip out. But it cannot compensate for super soft screws. It helps a little bit even on super soft screws, but it's not a foolproof thing, but it's a very good thing, especially for people with budget knives. The budget knives are the ones that tend to have low quality screws and strip out easily. So there you can see that shiny new finish. And I'll show you the tools that I did that with. So I used the liquid for the, where did I put it now? There it is. I used the ox guard, and now it's a little bit better for the lock stick. So reasonable knife. I always suggest get high quality screwdrivers. Get yourself some of this stuff at Drive Grip. I've got links for, in the United States, it's very easy to get this on Amazon. I've got Amazon links down below. Canadians, you probably want to buy it in the US and have it sent up. Hopefully you've got friends in the States or family or somebody. Some of the links from the United States do ship to Canada. It is occasionally on Amazon.ca, so I'll have links for that as well. Check out the video for it. The best links are with the video for this. And, oh, if you're wondering, if you haven't seen very many of my videos, this is actually what I use to lubricate my knives. Lucas fishing reel oil. It's a very light oil. It's very good for the budget knife guy. Is this the best oil for knives? Of course not. But it's a good oil that works quite well, especially if you're on a tight budget. So thanks so much for watching my video. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, friends, cut towards your chum, not your thumb.